for IPCC and Intermediate on the topic risks and controls of BPA and core banking systems. My dear CA aspirants, kindly use this opportunity to enhance your knowledge and share as much as possible with your colleagues and friends. All the best, guys. Now I call upon CS Bharat Kumar sir to take over the session. Over to Bharat Kumar sir.
Thank you. Hi dears, happy evening. Shanmati, Nisha, Vishnu, Asha, Abhinaya, happy evening. Good, we will start with the class. Maybe we'll wait for a minute or two. And once that is done, then we can start with the class. Happy evening, Sai Shriram, Rakshana, Malavika, Revati. Good. Okay. If the SICASA friends can add the screen, we can share the screen and then we can start with the class. Okay, great. Okay, good. Now, guys, we will go inside the class directly. What we have done yesterday and day before yesterday, we will try to quickly visualize and see what we have done. I'll take you through for some 5-10 minutes because what is more important is how far we are able to remember what we have already done. And then we can go inside the class. If you quickly remember, we started with something called strategic management. In the strategic levels in organization, we told there are 3: corporate level, business level, and functional level. Once we complete that, we went to the information technology. We started up with the information system components. We told what is hardware, software, network, database, and user. Now, we should know what are the risk and controls, how the risk is coming, what is that control, what is internal control, how they will try to manage that in business process automation, how they will try to do that in core banking system. We will try to cover everything. So if you quickly remember, we wanted to start with this saying, what is the business? Yes, so I already told you, business is defined by Peter F. Drucker. So when we say Peter F. Drucker, automatically you will try to remember, it is the act of being busy. It is not only for profit making, it is also apart from that. This is what we would have told very, very strongly. So first is, what is business? Every organization will have a business. Now, what is this process? We already told what is process. It is converting input into output, I into O. So when we say converting input into output, we said it is going to be a process. Whenever you have a business process, you will not try to do everything manually. You will try to connect that with automation activities. That means you are connecting that with your technology. So when you know what is going to be there for the futuristic purpose, you will try to convert that into automated activity. So what is business process automation? We will say very clearly, automation is less of manual activity and more of machine related activity. So when you try to know what is business process automation, they will try to say optimize and streamline the functions of business enterprise. So what we will say what is business process automation? We will say optimize and streamline the business functions or the functions of the business process. So when you optimize and streamline the functions of business process, automatically you will try to ensure manual activity will be less and the machine related activity will be more. Now this is your base for you to concentrate what is business process automation. If you see in EIS, we have 5 chapters. Number 1, business process automation. We will have risk and control relating to business process automation. We should know what are the basic weakness that we have, what are all the threats that disrupts the operations, what are all the risks that you have. everything we should try to know about it. So whenever you do business process automation, there is always a chance that there can be risk, and there is always a chance that can be used as a control. If you quickly remember, now can you tell me what did I say for control? What is this control when I told yesterday? Did I say any numbers? Or if I say what is this 4, 3, 2, can you tell me what is this we have told yesterday? Can you guys tell me in the chat, what did we tell when we said control, and what is this 4, 3, 2? Can you answer this? This is very important for conceptually. So try to tell me the answer. We can proceed further. I'll also give you the mnemonics. So what did we remember like this? When we said this, what is this? We are trying to concentrate now. Quickly tell me the answer. We can go to the next level. Yes, very good. 3PO PDC. Yes. What is this 3PO PDC? We told very clearly the practices, policies, procedures, organizational structure, and your preventive control, detective control, corrective control. Very good. Abhinaya, Nisha have told the answer. Yes. So when you wanted to say what is this control, we should always say practices, policies, procedures, and organizational structure, which can either be prevented or detected and corrected. So we should know that this is the keyword for you to remember. When we say this control, we will always try to use this word called 3PO plus PDC. Now I will go and connect this and say, we did not stop there. We told PDCC, then we told physical access control, then we told logical access control, then we told environmental control, then we called application control and managerial control. If you quickly remember this, yes, 3 resources and 2 controls on audit. Very good. What is this? Physical access control, logical access control, environmental control, then application control and managerial control. Whenever you wanted to do this automation, you will try to have risk also, you will try to control also. Now, basically, if you actually see what are the business process automation objectives, they make it very simple by saying it is ICAI. ICAI is the mnemonics that we prepare for us to understand, but it is not our institute. It is not Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. What is this ICAI called? It is called integrity. So when you wanted to say that there should always be authorized access, you should keep it with honesty, integrity. Second is, you should ensure whatever you want to do, it should be only for your own self or for the authorized people, and you should keep only when somebody is asking it for. So confidentiality. What is the second one? We will say availability. Only when people ask for that particular data which is required for them, you will try to give that availability. Yes. The next is internal control and timeliness. So when you say internal control and time, so automatically we will try to get the keyword called ICAI. So whenever you wanted to remember that when you have business process automation, automatically what will come into picture? The control will come into picture. So ICAI is very important for your exams perspective. So I'll mark it here. Please mark it and say important for exams. So this is how you will try to remember your objectives of controls. Now, let's take for an example. You will not, when you study for the examinations, you will not concentrate that all the questions that you study, you will be studying for the examination and going, correct? So you will ensure that what is required for the exams that you will study and go. Sometimes you will miss out something because you cannot cover 100% of things. Very good. No, that's the beauty of it. This is okay, one side. Now, don't you think whatever you have not studied might come in the examination also? Yes. So you might not have covered 100%, but there are some questions which ICA would definitely ask for, but you might not cover everything and go. So don't you think that is an inherent weakness in the system? Yes. So when you miss out something, even before you go inside the examination, you will have a problem whether they might ask that question or not. So that they call in the high level called vulnerability. So what is this vulnerability? I will say it is an inherent weakness in the system safeguards. So whenever you wanted to study, you will ensure that you always have a doubt whether it is covered properly or not. So inherent weakness in the system safeguard is called what? Is called your vulnerability. Now let's take for an example. When you went to the examination, what question you did not actually study, they have asked that in the examination. What can you do? You will have two things to be done. One, you can either leave it in choice. When you have a choice questions, out of 5 you will have to write 4, you can leave it, or you can write that as a last question, whichever you wanted to know. At least you can manage that particular, if you know the meaning or concept in at least a 50-60%, you can write it and keep. Now let's take for an example. You cannot leave that in choice at all. You should definitely write. If at all you have, don't you think it will disrupt the operation? Yes, it will disrupt the operation. What you will disrupt the operation is called threat. So indirectly, we will say when anything that disrupts the operations, it is called what? It is called threat. So anything that disrupts the operations or functioning of the system, we call it as threats. Now, what is this risk? You should accordingly remember, you should always remember that threat and risk is not only one thing. You should cover it on a high level. What is risk? Risk means when any that disrupts the operation is more than the weakness itself. So indirectly, you will try to remember that whatever is risk when we talk about, we will always say risk is equal to threat over vulnerability. Threat over vulnerability. Yes. What is this? That mean whenever you wanted to say risk, risk is going to be really tough. Whenever you wanted to say risk, you will try to control. That's okay. But the risk is always threat over vulnerability. So please mark these 3 points important for the examination. I'll color it in a different way so that it is not going to be the same color. Yes. So we can mark it and say what is vulnerability, what is threat, what is risk. They will definitely ask you this in the examination. So please write this and keep. Vulnerability is equal to inherent weakness in the system. Threat is equal to anything that disrupts the operation or functioning of the system. What is risk? Yes, what Abhinaya has told, interrupt the functioning of the system. Exactly. That's what we say, disrupting the functioning of the system or the operation of the system. Very good. Now, when you have this risk, you will always have a problem saying that how can you try to come over with the risk? So we should know that there is something called control. Everything you cannot control only when the risk happens. So you should try to bring something called risk related terms. So risk related terms. Now let's take for an example. We know that vulnerability cannot be made to go to threat. When vulnerability is there, you should try to bring an answer which will make your job easy. So the answer for vulnerability, which we will try to call it as countermeasure. Countermeasure is the answer to vulnerability. What does that mean? You will try to come back with a solution, which we will say when you have a countermeasure against that, if you do something, then it is called countermeasure. Very simple example. When I wanted to protect my system, I should try to protect my system means against the virus. I should have antivirus. Even if the small bug or the small error, small crashing of the system comes, you will immediately put an antivirus. So against that vulnerability, what you are trying to do, you are doing a countermeasure. So you can say antivirus software if you install. So automatically it will try to become your countermeasure. So now we are writing the risk related terms. What is this countermeasure? When you give an answer to vulnerability, it is called your countermeasure. Now, when the countermeasure is not able to do beyond, when the vulnerability is exceeding on the threat, in the risk, you will try to have three things, three terms which are going to make your job very tough. What are they? One is called attack. Another is called exposure. Another is called likelihood. So whenever you have a risk, there are three things which will have and affect your system. What are they? One is called attack, another is called exposure, another is likelihood. Guys, why I am concentrating on this term, you should understand these are your amendments that is made in May 2020, and I am going to cover the amendments in November 2020. Whatever is updated in the material, I am covering. So we need to be really, really strong and careful. The basics, if it is strong only, you can go inside and try to answer any question. Otherwise, we will not know what we are trying to do also. So these are the terms. These risk related terms are actually from CA final examination, CA final paper, which is called ISCA. From ISCA, they wanted to bring it to, EIS, and we should study accordingly. So we need to be really, really strong that they have brought it from the CA final paper called ISCA. Say what they wanted to bring everything. Now, what is vulnerability? We told inherent weakness. What is going to be threat? Anything that disrupts the operation. What is risk? Threat over vulnerability. What is control? You will say 3PO plus PDC, preventive, detective, corrective, compensatory. You may have physical access or logical access. Yesterday I was talking about the ATM example. If you quickly go back to that video, or if you remember what I have told that video, I was talking about the ATM, which should have actually done by logical access control, but because of a protective measure, they also keep it for physical access control. Environmental control, I already told you what is there. 6 application controls and 8 managerial controls we would have told. Now that and all is based on your controls. Now risk related terms, attack. What is this attack? Anything that can be attempted to gain unauthorized access, then you call it as attack. So anything can attack. You will not know when there is a risk. They will definitely try to attack, and it is an attempt to gain unauthorized access. I'll make it even more strong. Attempt to gain unauthorized access. Now, likelihood or exposure. We can write exposure first. So what is this exposure? The extent of loss. The extent of loss when the risk materializes. Now, guys, you should always understand this. When we wanted to use a word called risk, this risk is not only for your EIS exam. It is not just for your small paper. This risk is a universal term. Even when you touch your standards on auditing or auditing paper, you will try to connect something called risk. We told inherent risk, detection risk, control risk, and when there is a fraudulent activity, risk related material misstatements, how you will try to cover. What is that? You will assess to the assess risk. So it is also there for your point, which you should understand in a way that it will also get covered in your way of understanding. The point is, risk can be not just for EIS, it is not just for IT, it is also for auditing. We already told you 240, 315 and 330. Indirectly it will get connected, so we should accordingly remember what is there for your risk related term. So SCA 240, 315 and 330. Indirectly you will try to remember. So what is this attack? Attack is attempt to gain unauthorized access. Exposure is extent of loss when the risk materializes. And you should also say what is going to be there for the next one, which is called likelihood. The likelihood is going to be whatever is the probability of the estimated loss. Probability of the estimated loss, it is going to be likelihood. So it may or may not happen. So you should connect. Yes, Nisha came back with an answer saying SA 315 and 330. So that's how we will try to remember it in a way. So these are your risk related terms. So please bring in for the picture. So what and all are the terms? We told very clearly it is going to be number 1, vulnerability. Number 2, threat. Number 3, risk. If at all you have an answer for vulnerability, it is called countermeasure. You will try to always bring, whenever you have countermeasure, you will have attack, likelihood and exposure. The last but not the least, all these things will try to be only on the asset. Only when you have an asset, you will try to get a vulnerability. So this is the starting point of anything. Starting point of vulnerability is the asset. Because whenever you say asset, it is of value to the organization. Value to the organization. Only when you have asset, you will ensure that something of value to the organization, only on that asset there will be vulnerability. Only on vulnerability, either you can get a countermeasure or you can try to get a threat. Only threat will lead to risk. Only when you have risk, there will be three terms that will get covered: attack, likelihood, and exposure. I'll give you 2 minutes time. Please copy this. Very, very important for your exams. They are going to ask you this in the examination. Who knows, it can also be for November 2020, but it is an important amendment. So please write it and keep. It is not whether it is for old syllabus or new syllabus. This is basically for EIS. So it is worth knowing when you wanted to study for your exams. Yes, so when you cover your EIS, which is your information technology, you will automatically try to get all these risk related terms. Please take down this. We'll accordingly go to the next level. So please take down this. I have already told you the order: asset, vulnerability, threat, risk, attack, likelihood, exposure. And if there is an answer for vulnerability already you have prepared, then automatically it will go and sit in under your vulnerability, which is called countermeasure. I hope you would have written all these keywords and kept. Now we'll go to the next one. What are the objectives of controls? Okay, I'll make it strong. So listen carefully. Objectives of controls. Now, whenever you wanted to have objectives of controls, there are two questions which will confuse you. What are the objectives of controls to mitigate the risk? What are the objectives of controls? So there are two things you will have to remember. When you have objectives of controls, we already told PDCC. Yes, so we already told PDCC. When you have objectives of controls to mitigate the risk, they will try to say manual control, semi-automated control, and automated control. These are your quite tricky concepts in the EIS. So I wanted to take this for your sake of understanding things so we can make your job very, very easy. So this is one question which they will confuse. So I'll mark this in a different color. So you will know that these two are confusing. So you will accordingly say objectives of controls is one and objectives of controls to mitigate the risk is another. So we should know how they are going to ask this question. So objectives of controls is different. Objectives of controls to mitigate the risk is different. So when you wanted to cover this, automatically you will try to say what are the risk of BPA? What are the risk of BPA? When you wanted to know what are the risk of BPA, you should also know what is the controls, which we already wanted to say in the third chapter. If you quickly remember your physical access, logical access, and environmental control. Now here, the risk of BPA is different. And overall, what are the types of business risk? You should also know that types of business risk. We will go one after another and then we will go to internal control. What is this types of business risk? So we will try to open up this. I hope you are able to see this really strong. What are the risk of BPA? Now the risk of BPA, we can remember it in easy ways that we can say it is if iPod. We already told yesterday hardware. You remember input devices, processing devices, output devices, and data storage devices. In this, if you actually see, the risk of BPA are actually 6 in number. So we will say it can either be based on infrastructure. So it can be either based on infrastructure risk. It can be either based on infrastructure risk or it can be based on file and data transmission risk, and it can also be based on input risk. Now, whenever you move the file from one place to another place, or when you have the database, when you transmit it from one place to another place, there is a chance that it might get cut, or it might get pasted in a different way, or it might be not accessible, or maybe the file may be crashed, you may not know. So there is always a problem that you will have an infrastructure risk. Second, files and data transmission risk, input and access risk, and automatically when you have input risk, you can have processing risk, you can have output risk, and you will have data related risk. We already remember data is equal to raw facts and figures. So we made it really strong. So there are 6 types of risk. Don't confuse that with risk of BPA and types of business risk. You should know both are different. Risk of BPA is your if iPod, IFIPOD. So please make that really strong. So that's what we are trying to cover here. Risk of BPA, please write it down and keep if iPod is the answer. Don't confuse that with that. See how many types of risk I am connecting, and everything will be indirectly confusing. So write it and keep. We will go to the next one. I'll give you a minute for you to write so you can understand the risk of BPA is different. Types of business risk is different. Types of business risk is different. If iPod, I have already told the mnemonics also, you can easily remember. If you are done with that risk of BPA, we should know and cover types of business risk. The types of business risk is based on your environmental factors. So what I'll write here, I'll just say ENVT. What is this? Environment, which can cover operational level, or it can be financial level, or regulatory compliance. So if you quickly remember, I can connect that with your auditing when you try to say TCWG. Guys, tell me, what is TCWG and which standard? Tell me what is TCWG and which standard it will cover. Because these are the basic things we should know when we are connecting the EIS and auditing. It has got no connection, but we are still trying to make with the conceptual way. What is this TCWG? Which standard number? You are going to write this November 2020, right? Quickly tell me. SA 260, very good. What is this TCWG? Very good. SA 260, Asha, good. To those charged with governance. Yes, very good. See how many people are answering. Very good. Malavika, Revati, Martina, good. Those charged with, not covered with governance, it is those charged with governance. Yes, 260. Very good. 260, 265, communicating the deficiency, all that we will cover. Yes. Now, the beauty of our professional courses, you should not restrict that subject with that subject alone. You should try to connect it with the way that you can connect with other subjects also. So that is your regulatory risk. So we should know who we wanted to comply, how it is. When you go for company law, we will say whenever you have a regulation, you should know to whom you will have to contact. It can be tribunal or it can be court. In the company law's perspective, we will say tribunal is the final fact-finding authority. So we will call them as NCLT, NCLAT. Correct? National Company Law Tribunal, and against National Company Law Tribunal, you can go and appeal to National Company Law Appellate Tribunal. So they are the final fact-finding authorities. Now, if you see, beyond fact-finding, when there is a question of law, as per the law-related term, we will say you will have to go to court. It can be special or session court, high court, and then the apex court, which is called Supreme Court. So you can easily connect it. When one word called to those charged with governance, you say compliance. It covers the strategic management. It covers EIS. It covers your law. It covers your auditing. It covers everything. So indirectly, you should know how to connect this. Yes, the next one is called what? Reputational risk. So reputational risk, that means whenever you wanted to get a permission or a license, and if that affects your whole reputation in the business, then it is called what risk? Reputational risk. And the strategic risk is going to be top level risk. There can also be something called data related risk. So there are things which you can connect it and say, and people related risk also, data related risk and people related risk. So indirectly you have all this. Because why I am adding something now? Because this is an amendment question. In May 2020 they have added saying that these risks are also been there. So whenever they wanted to cover this, they also try to say technological risk also is covered. So please mark it and write it. There is a real good chance that they can ask this question. Note it from me. Types of business risk, they can ask it. And it is in your which chapter? It is in your business process automation, chapter number 1. So chapter number 1, you can accordingly remember. Chances of good question are already there, and it is going to be there in the question paper. Now, these are your types of business risk. What did we say? We told risk of BPA and types of business risk will be confusing in the exam. We should know how to bring about it. Yes. Now, what is the next one we should try to see? The types of business risk, we told it is OFRS and data related, people related, and technology related. So we made that really strong. Yes. So when we say what are the risk of BPA, we told if iPod, correct? If iPod is how you we try to remember. If iPod is how we try to remember, and we made that really strong. Yes. Now these are your points. We said we will try to confuse that in the examination. Now internal control. What is this internal control? This is what we will say in SA 315. So where you will have to go and study internal control, you should always say SA 315 is the best way, and they will not stop SA 315 as internal control. They will say internal control as per COSO framework. What is this COSO? Committee of Sponsoring Organization. So they call this, they have not given the expansion, but they would have given that in CA final. Committee of Sponsoring Organization of Treadway Commission. That's what they will say. So that's your COSO framework, COSO. Very important when you wanted to cover your auditing also, when you wanted to cover your EIS or IT also. So yeah, internal control, we will always remember SA 315 and Committee of Sponsoring Organization. Whenever you wanted to say internal control, you will try to connect it and say this is nothing but your control, and internal control means through your internal organization. Whether the internal controls are there, internal financial controls are there. So we can try to remember always the keyword called internal financial controls. Internal financial controls. Yes, so 315, they will try to connect this. This, when they wanted to say, they also connect with another concept called ERM, Enterprise Risk Management. Now, what is this risk management otherwise called? When you manage risk, what happens? When you manage risk, you will try to say it is nothing but your control. When you manage the risk, it is nothing but your control. So ERM components and enterprise risk management. What is enterprise risk management? We will try to cover now. Whenever you wanted to know that ERM and your COSO framework will always be going together, So we should be very careful about it. And they will say internal risk management will always get covered with your flow of your COSO framework. So try to remember COSO framework answer will be there and ERM answer will be there. I am going to connect both these things and say conceptually both are going to be same. Both are same when you have conceptual connection. So let's go for that and try to see where and all we have enterprise risk management. There and all you can connect with your internal control as per COSO. So be with me. I will try to connect it here. See the point. First, we will try to see what are the benefits of ERM. What are the benefits of ERM? If you actually see, there are 6-7 benefits. Okay, number 1. What is that you will do? Align the risk appetite and strategy. You should know what is going to be risk for you and what is going to be the other things which are very important. The risk strategy is always there. So you should know that when you cover the risk, it is not just the risk of your internal organization, it can also be for an external organization. So you should be very, very careful about it, and you can accordingly connect it. So I'll again repeat, enterprise risk management, we can accordingly connect it with your internal control as per COSO. Yes, so we can accordingly remember it. Now, the next thing that we need to cover is aligning the enterprise risk management. What is this aligning the enterprise risk management? We will try to see what are your vulnerabilities. Whenever you wanted to have vulnerability itself, you can accordingly remember it and say, this is how you will try to connect it with the concept. Okay, vulnerability. When you say vulnerability, we already told it is the inherent weakness in the organization. Yes. I think the screen is not moving a bit. Anyone from SICASA can help me? I am able to switch over to the screen here. Just give me a minute. If I'm able to share, if I'm able to change this, then it's fine. Aishwarya, why is this not changing?
Sir, can you close and share again, sir?
Yes, I can do.
Yeah, sir.
Okay, let them help me for doing this. So by the time I'll be able to, yes, I think we are able to connect it now. Now what am I talking about is the connection between your vulnerability and your risk. So when I wanted to connect with this, I wanted to connect with business process automation. Yes, now I'm able to connect this.
Okay,
Now
sir.
the point is benefits of ERM. This is what I was talking about. Whenever I wanted to align the risk appetite and strategy, I should know where the vulnerability starts. Only when I know the small thing that is going to disturb me, I will ensure that whether it is going to connect with the threat or risk. So we should know this. Risk, align the risk appetite and strategy. Second, only when you know what is going to be the risk appetite, I can easily minimize my operational surprises and losses, because the risk will not be like immediately coming. It will give you a hint of how it is going to be there, and it will give you chances for you to identify. So whenever you have an enterprise risk management, which is otherwise called control, you will automatically minimize the operational surprises and losses. Now, whenever there is a risk in a particular department, there is a good chance that it can go from any particular place to any particular place. So you should always ensure that there is always a chance that there can be a cross enterprise risk. So identify and manage the cross enterprise. Don't think it is only outside the enterprise. It can also be the department level connection. So we should be very strong about it. Now, whenever you have a proper risk management, you can try to connect with risk, return, and growth. What does that mean? Whenever you have more risk, you will have more return. Automatically, you will have more growth. We will usually say this: the ship is built not just to be on the shore, it is for you to sail. That means whenever there is a purpose and you wanted to build only for that, it should take risk. If there is a risk, then only there will be return. If there is a return, then only there will be a growth. So you can remember A mile RPS. What is this? That's what we are trying to cover. Number one, align the risk appetite and strategy. Number two, minimize the operational surprises and losses. Correct. Third one, identify the risk, cross enterprise risk that happened there. So there is a chance that it can also come here. Link the growth, risk, and return. As I already told you, remember the ship example. Whenever there is going to be a risk, there only there will be more return, and it will automatically grow. Enhance the risk response decision. How you respond to the risk. If you remember SA 330, they will try to cover like that only. So enhance the risk response decisions and ensure if you wanted to inject capital, accordingly you can do, so that you can cover with a better technological terms and better technological tools. You can manage that in a way. Hourglass structure. In strategic management, we will use a word called hourglass structure. What is that? They will say, if the middle management has to be laid off, you can replace that with your technology. So we should know how to connect and enhance the risk response, rationalize the capital, provide the integrated response to multiple risks. For many risks, you can bring it under one control. That's what we can say. Either it can be a physical access control or logical access control. Last is when you manage risk, you can seize the opportunities so that the external environment will get connected. So we always say SWOT analysis. In that we say opportunities is always going to be a favorable condition. See where I am connecting. I am connecting with your SM, which we told as SWOT analysis. So favorable conditions. So what is A mile RPS? So this is the benefits of your ERM. So ERM, what is ERM? I already told you the ERM is going to be a very high level decision making. Risk management will not be done in the low level. Yesterday also we connected this. When we say enterprise risk management, it is not going to be in the functional level or going to be your business level. It will always be more on corporate level. So corporate level is your top level management. And who will be there in the top management? Board of directors and the top management, any other people. We call it as KMP in law, key managerial personnel, correct? Section 2 subsection 51 of your Companies Act 2013, they will say KMP. So there will be CEO, CFO, company secretary, director, all these people, correct? Management and other personnel, they will apply themselves in the strategy setting and across the enterprise. So before we go to the components of ERM, see what diagram I have given here. So whenever you see this diagram, you will understand one thing. You will understand that it is not going to be only one level for you to know. It can also be multiple level. You know, one side they wanted to cover, it can be a subsidiary, it can be a business unit, it can be your division, or it can be entity level. What does that mean? On the right hand side, they are connecting with your organizational structure. They are connecting with your organizational structure, where you will study this in SM, which is called simple, divisional, multi-divisional, functional, SBU, matrix, network, and hourglass. Like that, there will be 8 structures, and for the whole syllabus people, you will have 6 structures to be covered. Now, what is this they are trying to covering? They will say it can be any organizational structure, but it will have a flow for you to understand what is the enterprise risk management. See the top level. If you are able to see on the top, I'm showing you the top. They are trying to say what are the business risk. Now only we told operational risk can be there, reporting risk can be there, strategic risk can be there, compliance risk can be there. So when you have organizational structure on one side, when you have the risk on another side, you will have enterprise risk management on the other side, which will try to have a control over the whole thing. One simple diagram from your Google, and it is already done with 3 concepts. On the right hand side, the organizational structure. On the top side, it is the types of business risk. In the front side, it is going to be the enterprise risk management, which is your control. So we can accordingly remember these are the 8 points that you will have to remember. Now, I already told you very clearly, enterprise risk management is otherwise called internal control. Whenever you wanted to say internal control, you will remember SA 315. Whenever you remember SA 315, here you will remember COSO framework. What is COSO? Committee of Sponsoring Organization. Whenever you try to remember COSO framework, automatically the whole of the internal control will get connected. It is nothing but called enterprise risk management. Can you please take this diagram that's saying that it covers 3 things. It covers 3 things. You can see whenever you wanted to, when you see this video, 3 things will get covered in an organization. Number 1, organizational structure. That means the hierarchy, who will do what in that particular position. Second is your risk. Third is your control. Please take down this. Once you do that, then we can go to the next one. Conceptually, it's very important. We should try to read chartered accountancy courses and subjects like this only. So don't say it is, sir, it is strategic management. No, you are talking about auditing. We don't want to. That's how you will have to connect as a professional. So please take that really, really strong. The institute could have given all the subjects in one single book. You may not be able to appreciate. So they divided in subject vary and say SM is this, EIS is this, auditing is this. But as a chartered accountant student, the moment you register as a chartered accountant or a company secretary or a cost accountant, you should become that professional itself. Correct? You don't need to wait for you to get the marks. The knowledge is very important. Beyond knowledge, it is going to be the imagination. Correct? So that's what Albert Einstein says. So we should be a strong insight that whenever you wanted to study, you will have to ensure that you are getting that connected. That's what we are trying to do. I hope you can appreciate what is that we are doing. Okay. Now, once you have written this, we are now going to connect what? We are going to connect components of ERM, which should be in order, and we should connect that with internal control. I already told you many times that this should be in the order. See the first point, internal environment. First, you should know, whenever you wanted to manage the risk, what is our internal environment, whether it is good or bad. Correct? When it is good, that means you have no problem, there is no risk. Whenever there is going to be something change, something that is to be changed, you will have to find out what is this in your risk, what can be done in internal environment. Now, immediately what you should see what are your goals and objectives. Should you think you should change the objective setting? Yes. Here, please understand, whenever I say internal environment, again, where it will go? It will go to strength and weakness of your strategic management. Whenever we say internal environment, we connect it with a word called strength and weakness. Correct? You remember this, guys? Yes. Whenever you wanted to say objective setting, you will try to immediately remember VMOG concept: vision, mission, objectives, and goals. So you should know how you wanted to cover your mission. What is objectives? When we wanted to say objectives is close-ended attributes, goals are open-ended attributes. So we should know how to set the objectives. So the next is significant event. You are not going to change the whole process. Yes, because you don't need to have all the risk in the whole process. What is that event that is going to create your problem? That if you try to find out, then everything is done. Correct? They will simply say in a normal parlance, because of one rat disturbing the house, you cannot fire the whole house. Correct? You should only find out the rat and you should make the rat run out of the home. And because of that, you cannot fire the whole home or the house. Correct? That's what they are saying. You cannot cover the whole process for the risk. There will only be some event identification. What is that event which is going to create a risk, or what is the event which you perform which will create you control? So significant event identification. Immediately what you will do, you identified the event. Immediately you will go back, see, and what is the risk assessment, how you will try to assess the risk. We already told the terminologies, whether you can go for countermeasure, what is the attack, what is likelihood, start assessing the risk, then try to find out the answer for it, which is your risk response. This is what they will try to say in SA 330 if you connect. So risk response, risk assessment, if you control, if you bring it, then you can see what are all the activities that you can do. Control activities. Yes, now you know that there is a problem. You find out in the internal environment that there is an objective setting problem. You identified the event also, assess the risk and responded to the risk. That time the risk is over. Next time, don't you think the same risk should not happen? So you should try to do control activities and inform the management by communicating that there is going to be a risk. We have created that control, but we should ensure that it should not be coming again. Once that information is communicated to the top management, you will do monitoring of activities, and it is already done by ERM. We already told ERM will be done by whom? It will be by board of directors, management, and other personnel. So we should be very careful that it is not just one time you will try to stop the risk, you will try to control. You should ensure it is informed and then communicated to the people and monitor, ensuring that after this there is not going to be anything. Correct? Even for your examination, don't you think you will do this? You try to write test series and see, you will go and write mock test paper from the institute. They will correct it and give you. You will find out from the suggested answer what is your mistake. First, you will know what is your strength and weakness, correct? Indirectly, your exam of your CA also can be connected with these components of ERM. First, what is your strength and weakness? Then you will try to see whether you are connecting with your ICAS angle, objective setting. Which subject is disturbing you? Significant event identification. You will start writing that test and see, correct? Then you will assess the risk. If at all you are making mistake, you will say, oh my God, I did not know. I thought I remembered all this correctly in the exam time. I'm forgetting, correct? Some people will comically say, sir, I remember everything all the time. Correctly, that 3 hours I am not able to remember. And if we ask what is that 3 hours, they will say 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock. Correct? So the examination time, and that too post lunch session, correct? So you should know how to have a control over the food also. Leave internal control. Control over food is again very important. So you should know how to stop your lunch by 12:30. Correct? So that you can go from to the exam premises, and by the time you get settled, it will all be digested, and then only when you start writing. And we need to be really careful. I usually tell this. We need to be really careful. Too much of food also will not bring you the memory. Very less food also will make you faint, or very less water also, it will make you dehydrated. So we should be very, very careful. So it is not just the enterprise risk management. Our risk management itself is going to be very important. Don't you think so? So yes, now coming back again to the concept. Internal environment, knowing your strength and weakness of the organization. Second, objective setting. Event, what is the event that is disturbing you or distorting you? That can be a vulnerability where it can be rectified through a countermeasure, correct? Next is risk assessment, how you will assess the risk. What are the ways and methods that you will try to do? Yesterday also, if you remember, we connected this with IS audit tools. Whenever there is a risk that can happen, types of audit rules, either take a snapshot pictures of the images, or you can try to go for preparing a dummy entity in the host application system. We call integrated test facility. Then we connected and said everything, if you blend it together, it becomes SCARF, system control audit review file. And then we did not stop there. We told any exception, you will try to go for CIS, continuous and intermittent simulation. And the last one is any suspicious activity, you will go for audit hoops. If at all I'm in a good speed, if you do not know what I'm trying to say, please go back and see the previous day video, yesterday's video on 21. You will be able to understand. We openly told what is IS audit, what are the objectives, what are the tools, and all, so that you can get connected. Yes, Martina, Iska, very good. ISSCA, exactly the same thing I am talking about. Now it's all connection, correct? What you thought, sir, first day what you took as SICASA, now are we able to connect? Yes, we are able to connect. It's very easy. If you know the conceptual understanding, you will be able to connect it better. You guys also can do better 4 or 5 times. If you do that strong, automatically you are going to remember. Okay, now coming back. Components of ERM, we are done. What did I tell? Enterprise risk management will be similar to internal control. What did I say? Control environment. See the next point here. I have merged here and said control environment. When I say control environment, I connected and say control environment of COSO is equal to I plus O plus S. What is this I plus O plus S? Internal environment plus objective setting plus significant event identification. Indirectly, what I'll write here, for you to understand, I am writing IOS. For you to understand, I am writing iOS. What is this iOS? Don't think it is the Apple iPhones operating system, correct? So iOS is what? Internal environment, objective setting, and significant event identification. We are able to connect this. So we said risk assessment and risk response is equal to called risk assessment of COSO framework. So that two categories here, they call it as one word called risk assessment. Control activities and control activities are same. Information communication is same. Monitoring and monitoring is same. More importantly, we are trying to connect that with what? We are going to connect that with something called your CRCIM, which is connected with your SA315. Please write this and keep. Conceptually also we should know, and the flow of memory also we should know. Can you take this for 2 minutes? See how we have actually connected. there is a good chance that any one question they can ask you again in the exam from the business process automation angle. Don't change the order. Order should be same. So we should be very careful in knowing what is that they are trying to ask in the order, how it is going to get covered. Take down this. If you are done with this, we will go to the next level. So what we have done, we have already told what are the basics and how it is going to get covered. Okay. Now what is this enterprise risk management and control? Before going to core banking system, we should know what are the risk related terminologies. We already told this. The next is risk management strategies. What are the risk management strategies? You will have to remember it as 5 T's. Okay, so write this 5 T's. You can I will tell you what is this 5 T's I am going to talk about. So write the heading risk management strategies. Important, they are asking this in the examination. So we should be really careful about it. Risk management strategies, how you will remember? You will remember it as 5 T's. Number 1, what you will do, guys, when you are getting a risk, you tell me how you will manage the risk. You tell me, let me try to see if you are able to answer it. What you will try to do when you have risk. For example, the question that you studied is not in the question paper, or what you have not studied is there in the question paper. What will you do? Tell me from the risk related terminologies angle what you will try to do. Let me see if you are able to answer. I wanted to make it interactive. I don't wanted you to just listen to whatever I say. If you quickly do it, you will also have some time to think. Correct? Try to manage writing the related keywords. Yes. Okay. Now, shall we go to that level and try to say what she wants to say here? Yes. Number 1, she is trying to say we are going to tolerate the risk. Correct? So she will write the keywords with whatever she wants to know. So tolerate or accept the risk. So what is the first T? Tolerate or accept the risk. Try to understand the meaning of the question. Correct. So when you say 5 T's, what is the 5 T's? Tolerate or accept the risk. Relate with some concepts. Very good. So you will try to relate with some concepts. What is the first thing you will do? Tolerate or accept the risk. Second, transfer or share the risk. Here you cannot share in the exam, but generally the risk can be shared. For example, if you see insurance and all, you can accordingly try to remember. So tolerate or accept the risk, transfer or share the risk. Second, you will try to mitigate or treat the risk. You will try to manage that. So you will try to find out the reasons for it. You will try to treat or mitigate the risk. Tolerate or accept the risk, transfer or share the risk, treat or mitigate the risk. And if you think that you can leave it, and you will also say terminate or eliminate the risk. Terminate or eliminate the risk. You can eliminate the risk also. You can terminate the risk also. The last one is, if you think that the probability is very low, you can turn back or ignore the risk. Ignore the risk. So what are these 5 T's? These 5 T's are going to be quite handy for your exam. Again, amendment question. So you can accordingly remember that. Amendment question. Again, it is taken from CA final. It is your ISCA. So tolerate or accept the risk. transfer or share the risk, treat or mitigate the risk, terminate or eliminate the risk, turn back or ignore the risk. We should be very careful in knowing about what we should do at what time. So risk management strategies. See how many types of risk question, how many types of control question you have in your paper called EIS. So don't you think this needs a separate coverage? Yes, that's what we are trying to do now. Can you take down all these questions that I wanted to tell? Yes, I'll give you 2 minutes. If you have written, great. If you have not written, I'm just showing it to you. Business is done by Peter F. Drucker. Process is converting input into output. What is BPA? What is control? What is objectives of BPA? ICAI. What is vulnerability? What is threat? What is risk? Indirectly, I'm trying to cover some 30-40 questions today. So what is risk? What is control? How you try to connect with control? What are the risk related terminologies? I already told you, you should write this in order. So you can also try to remember asset, vulnerability. For vulnerability, you can go for countermeasure. If you don't have countermeasure, then you will try to have threat. The threat will lead to risk. Risk will have attack or likelihood or exposure. So you can remember that really strong. So all these things will get connected. Asset, whenever you have something of value to the organization, you will have vulnerability, you will have countermeasure, the answer for it. Then it will lead to threat, threat will lead to risk, risk will lead to attack, likelihood or exposure. So this is what you will try to remember. Please write it and keep, so that when you see the amendments that is given from our ICA, you will know how they have connected that with the concept. You might know the answer from the institute material or any reference material, but the way of studying is what I wanted to do for all these days, so that it will give you it will make an eye opener for you to study your EIS. Yes. Now, what is the next one? We have already told countermeasure, risk and all. Please don't forget to write this question. Objectives of controls is different from objectives of controls to mitigate the risk. Both are confusing questions. Suddenly, when you wanted to say, you will not know what to write. So, see the question properly and get that answer done. Yes, whenever you wanted to cover the types of business risk, I already told you the types of business risk and risk of BPA will be confusing. So I am again putting the two in a different color. So you can remember that types of business risk and what are the risk of BPA will confuse you in the examination. So we should again remember. Again, one of the most important confusing questions list. Again, one of the most important confusing questions list. So when you read the question, be very strong and careful. What is the next question I told you? I am taking you slowly so that you will understand what we have done. We should also know. What is the next one? Internal control as per COSO will get connected with your risk of BPA. Correct? We already told this. So these two will be confusing. So we should know how to manage that. Internal control as per COSO also some 5 points. Connecting that points, you will have 7 or 8 points. This again will be confusing for you in the examination. Risk management strategies is an amendment question. So you can remember the 5 T's so that you don't need to get confused with that. This and all is separately risk, separately control. So you know how to cover that very easily now. Shall we go to the next one? Guys, tell me now, are you comfortable till this? Are you comfortable till this? Shall we go to the next level? Now we'll write CBS later. First, we will also say risk and controls of BPA together. Risk and controls of BPA together. Overall, if you wanted to see, you can cover the 3 concepts. See, listen carefully. I am going to connect something else also now. When I cover the risk and control separately, I told risk, separately I told control, separately I told internal control. Yes, separately I told COSO framework, separately we told enterprise risk management. Very good. People came back and say they are able to understand. Very good. So risk and control of BPA together. When you do a business process automation, you should always connect with the concept called CMT. You should know what is the configuration. You should know what is the master. You should know what is the transactions. So whenever you wanted to say configuration, what is the setup? How do you wanted to set up and how the risk and controls can be managing? So whenever you wanted to set up, you will define various options and see how and all it can be managed. So how and all it can be managed. So I am going to cover the overall risk and control of BPA, which is easy for you to remember, and they call it as CMT. So what is the CMT? Configuration, master, and transaction. So whenever you wanted to say configuration, you will always say what are the various options that you wanted to give. Now listen carefully. In the second chapter, when you wanted to connect data, there is always called 2 data. One is called master data, another is called non-master data. Master data is going to be more permanent. So whenever you say all the modules of software will be there, and what is for your designation, for that alone you will try to get it. All the modules of software will be there. So let's take for an example. Whenever you take a bigger ERP called SAP, you will try to have many ledgers. You will not call ledgers in SAP. You will try to call it as T codes, transaction codes. So when you cover the transaction codes, there will be, let's take for an example, there are 150 or 200 transaction codes are there. Now, when I am the finance manager, I will not be given all the access for all the transaction codes. What is to my designation? What is my access? They will try to say it is based on your RBAC and REAC. So again, I am connecting with another concept. What is this? Based on my role-based access control, based on my rule-based access control, I will try to be given my ledgers. So what is that allowed for me alone? That alone I will try to take. I cannot have a concept for everything. But the beauty is on the masters, you will try to have all the modules of the software. You have no problem. All the 150. In our example, what did I tell you? I told 150 T codes will be there, and accordingly, whoever is the designation, however they wanted to connect, they can connect accordingly. But it is not like that in transactions. Transactions is going to be individual business. Whenever you wanted to connect with the transaction, you will try to say small business only will be connected, and it is not going to be the full level. Now, the transactions, masters, and the codes, when you wanted to cover, the transactions will be individual files. That means the actual transactions for a particular user. So actual transactions for a particular user is always going to be transactions. So that means what is allowed for me, what is applicable for me, that alone I will try to take it. So configuration, masters, and transaction. So these are the 3 important terminologies. Again, please mark it important. They will ask you this in the examination. So what are the risk and controls of BPA? There will be 3 things. configuration, masters, and transactions. Now you will not stop there. You will also say what are the other risk and controls. Maybe for, let's take for an example, 2-3 things which are very important. They will say P to P. What is this P to P? Guys, can you tell me what is P to P? What is this life cycle called? We know accounts, purchase, sales, finance, and all, correct? When I say P to P, what do you remember, guys? Very important expansion that they will ask in the exam. What is P to P? Let me see. People can answer, I guess. Purchase department, procure to pay. Very good. No, it is not product life cycle, Revati. It is P to P is purchase life cycle. Shall I tell you what is that? Procurement to pay. Procure to pay. Easy to remember. So P to P is very good. Many people have come back. Very good. Procure to payment. Yes. Purchase to payment. Procure to payment. Rakshana. So when you wanted to say procure to pay, you will start with procurement till the payment. It is otherwise called RTP. It's otherwise called RTP. RTP means what? RTP means requisition to pay. Why am I connecting all this? All these are the controls that they will ask in the examination based on your BPA. What is RTP? Requisition to pay. What is this requisition to pay? Purchase requisition till payment. Purchase requisition to payment. When you see the corporate level and all, they will always talk about the corporate mnemonics. We took a separate session. If I still remember, I took a separate session in one of the private places for the corporate mnemonics. Separately, there are some 50-60 mnemonics which you should try to remember. One of them is RTP and P to P, procure to pay. What is this purchase requisition? Easily, if you try to remember, there are 3 departments in your purchase life cycle. One is called stores department. Okay, so one is called stores department, another is called purchasing department, and another is your vendor. So there will be people who will supply that. So whenever the purchase department wants to find out whether the stores department has it or not, they know that stores department need the material. So what they will do, they will try to go for the purchase requisition. See what I am trying to do. So I am covering up the life cycle. Purchase requisition. Then the purchase department will try to go for the vendor and request for quote. Request for what? Request for quote. Then what the vendor will give? The vendor will give quotation. Based on that, then you will prepare something called purchase order. Correct? Based on the purchase order, you will get the materials and you will make the payment. So you will do something called receipt and you will make payment. So indirectly, whenever I wanted to say purchase requisition till payment, I will say in easy words PRQ, PRP. This is the life cycle of purchase life. This is your purchase life cycle. What is this PRQ, PRP? Purchase requisition, request for quote, quotation, purchase order, receipt, and payment. So they will try to cover what is that they will try to do on the life cycle of the purchase. Who will try to ask what? That's what I have explained. So stores department would go for purchase, purchase would go for vendor. The vendor will try to give quotation, then there will be purchase order, then receipt and payment, which we call it as in your law. If you remember, we call it as consideration, something in return. Correct? So section 2, subsection D of your Indian Contract Act 1872, if you remember, which you studied in your CPT or foundation, we call it as consideration, something in return, receipt and payment. Now that's the connection we should go. These type of risk and controls also you should try to know. When you say purchase, you call it as PRQ, PRP, correct? So please write it and keep. What is this? Please mark this and say this is the mnemonics for you to remember your purchase life cycle. Please write this and keep. Don't change the order. They will ask you this in the examination. Order should be it should be in order only. It should be in order. Don't change the order. Are we clear? Now, similarly, they will try to have something called sales life cycle. Sales life cycle, we call it as OTC or O2C. What is this O2C? Order to cash. OTC is called order to cash. What is this order? Customer order. Customer order you will collect. When you are from the sales side, don't you think you will collect the customer orders? Yes. You will collect all the customer orders. How you will try to remember everything? You cannot try to remember everything. What you will do then? You will try to do something called recording. Okay, you record everything. Yes, order to cash. Very good. Nisha came back with an answer. So you will collect with the customer order and you will record all the customer orders. Okay, now where will you take the goods and give them from? You will try to take it from the godown or warehouse. You will try to do a pick release. You will try to do pick release. That means what? From the godown to the factory gate, inward, outward register and all will be there. Correct? On your excise tax, on your excise duty, that and all you will say that it is either for captive consumption or for going outside. So you will mark that at that place only the excise duty will start coming. All that they would have studied, told you in indirect taxation. Now it has become GST. Correct? So pick release. So what you will do after that? You will ship. Shipping, that means what? From the factory gate to the customer place you will try to do. Then you will try to provide the invoice. Receipt and payment will happen as I already told you in purchase life cycle. Then you will try to do something called reconciliation, which is nothing but your BRS which you studied. So what is that they are trying to say? Order to cash, you should try to remember CRP SIRR. You cannot change the order. So please try to remember that and mark it important. Again, they will ask this in the examination. Customer order. You will not only keep with the customer order, you will record all the orders. Then you will ensure pick release should happen. That means from the stores department, from the godown, you will try to bring it to the factory gate, and from there you will try to go for shipping. Then you will prepare the invoice and give them. Consideration will happen, receipt and payment. Then at the end of the day, you will do reconciliation, which we call in accounting called BRS, bank reconciliation statement. We will say in auditing, confirmation of balances. Correct? You will have to check whether whatever you have done is properly. Whatever is debited for you should have been creditor or vice versa. So all this has to be checked, and this is how you will try to complete your sales life cycle. Like this, you will have risk and controls of BPA together in understanding the whole first chapter's risk and controls is completed. So like this, you will have purchase life cycle, sales life cycle, inventory, HR, all these things will be there. So you can accordingly remember. So you can remember the HR life cycle and then the inventory. So all this automatically you will try to remember your valuation of inventories, which is called AS2. So all this you can study. HR, already you would have connected that with your functional level strategies. SM, which chapter? 6th chapter. Functional level strategies you would have already covered. So if you remember, we also covered that with the A, B, C, D, E, F. So we made that really strong. Like that, you can cover your HR also. Like that, these are the risk and controls that you have completed in your first chapter. Are we clear? Shall we go to core banking system now, guys? Yes, Nisha came back and said A, B, C, D, E, F. Very good. We remember all this. Now, shall we go to the core banking system concepts that we have? Yes. Very good. Now we are done with all these things. We are done with these diagrams and all, correct? If you are able to see all this. Next is, now we are going for internal control in banks. Now we are going to mark only the points. Now listen carefully, guys. We are going to the core banking system. If you see the core banking system, you should understand core stands for centralized online real-time environment. So you can accordingly remember this. So I'll write here core banking system, central CBS, which is your core banking system, centralized online real-time environment. That means your 24/7 online banking facility. So you can remember core banking system, which is nothing but your centralized online real-time environment. You will usually say 24/7. Easily you can remember 24/7 online banking facility. Now, without technology, you cannot try to even think of having a bank right now running. So we connected business process automation and core banking system. But actually, if you see from the materials angle, from your side, from the students angle, when we cover, we say it is chapter number 1 and chapter number 5. We don't have any differentiation whether it is which chapter. We are bothered only about the concept. We are not bothered about which chapter we are covering from. The only thing is concept. Are you clear? Very good. Are you knowing or are you understanding the question properly? This is what ICA will expect from you. Yes, I have understood the question. Are you correctly writing the answer for that? Yes, correctly you are writing the answer for that. Are you able to know the tricks that they have given in the exam? Are you finding out the nuances that they give in the question paper? Yes. Are you underlining the proper keywords for that concept? Yes, you are trying to do. If you do all these things, then you are in line with our institute. We are in line with our mother body. That's only we should try to find out. So only we are trying to put it hard. But then how will you know if I am just telling you a concept? So only I am telling you this is now from the first chapter. This is now from the 5th chapter. So you can accordingly remember. Yes. Now coming back, we are into the internal control in banks. What is this internal control in banks? Now, internal control as per COSO is for the enterprise. For the bank, you will try to know certain important points you will have to remember. What and all, how you will try to keep an internal control in banks. This is what I have already underlined in the keywords, and we made ourselves really, really strong. Maybe I'll make it a bit bigger so you can understand that. What is the first point? All the books should be balanced. Please write the keywords along with me so that you will have a writing practice. It is not just you happily sit it and then listen to it. The more you write, thinking, inking is more important. You will not only keep on be thinking, you will also do inking. So we usually give that concept called tick. Correct? So whenever we complete the class, we will say tick has to be done. What is this tick? Think, ink, confirm, and knowledge. So first think, then ink and see. That means without seeing, you write it and see. Then confirm it and see whether what you think and what you thought and inked is correct. Then put it as knowledge. So please write it and keep along with me. What is the first point? All the books should be balanced. Very good. When you wanted to keep the books balanced, don't you think you should confirm it with the authorized official? Yes. Only then you will know whether the banking functions are running properly. So what's the first keyword? All the books are to be balanced periodically. It should be perfect. Now that's very, very important. Second point. What is the second point? The branch managers must send periodic confirmation to the controlling authority. The managers is only for that particular branch. From that, they will try to have a head office, and then they will try to have a control office. They will send periodical confirmation to the controlling authority to ensure, yes, we have complaints, we have complied with all the systems and procedures. We are doing a perfect job. That's what they will try to show here when they wanted to cover this. So what's that they are trying to say? They are saying whenever the branch managers wanted to do, they will send a periodical confirmation to the controlling authority. Very good. Now that is also done. What is the third one? financial and administrative powers. I'll put that in a normal color so you will understand what is this. So what is this? Financial and administrative powers. It should be communicated and ensured that who has what power. Accordingly, they will fix that financial position and they will know the administrative powers. They are very clear about it. So the power should be pakka. What is the next one? They will say what are all the fraud prone items. They will ensure that all this and all has to be having two officials. In usually in the corporate we will say maker checker process. In audit also we do. Who makes will not check. Who checks will not make. So we should be very careful in knowing who is going to check and who is going to make. So that we are accordingly trying to remember. So the fraud prone item should always ensure that two at least officials of the branch should be in the custody. Next, the details of the lost security forms are immediately advised to control, because whatever is missed out, you should try to have it in a controlling manner. So the details of the lost security forms should be with a control. Next, you should not ensure that the people who are sitting in the bank in that position will not be in the same position, because there can be a fraud prone thing that can happen. So what will happen? Every 2-3 years, for them to bring a control, they should not get settled. There will always be something called job rotation. A system of job rotation always exists, and we should be knowing that. So that's what they are trying to say. It is not only the lost security forms you will do, you should also ensure the system of job rotation among the staff exists. So that's how they will say. Last point, the work of one staff member should be supervised and checked by another staff member. Just now I told you, maker checker process. It is not about, let's take for an example. When we say financial statements, auditing, what we will say, who is the responsible person to prepare financial statements? We will say management, correct? So the auditor should not prepare the financial statement. It is management's responsibility. We told that very clearly. If management prepares the financial statements, what is the auditor's job? To bring a true and fair view opinion on the financial statements by providing either an unqualified, qualified, adverse or disclaimer opinion, correct? So we made that very strong, saying that it should be invariably supervised and checked by another staff member, so that you can try to have a maker checker. Guys, how did I make that? For this also I try to create a mnemonic here. Yes, the management will prepare. So what is that we are trying to say? ABC. It can be right from the basics. If you do a financial fraud, you will have to get a job lost, and you should ensure the checkpoint should be proper. What is this? ABC. All the books should be balanced and confirmed. A, B, C. What is the next one? Financial fraud. Financial and administrative powers should be properly fixed. Fraud prone items, two people should be financially checking. Job lost. What is this? Job rotation should happening, and the lost security form should be identified and checked. The maker checker process has to be done. So please mark this and keep A, B, C. In financial fraud, all the books should be balanced and confirmed. Financial power should be there. Fraud prone items you should do. Job rotation must be done. Lost security forms details should be provided, and check whether there is a maker checker process. Please write this and keep. They will confuse you this in the examination. Maybe you will get confused. So they can ask you internal control in banks is, this is the answer. So please write this and keep. Internal control in banks. Internal control in banks. Without knowing this basics, you cannot go inside the core banking system. So please mark it and write it important. What is the next question? We will go to the next question. It is called IT control in banks. I will put this in white color so it's easy for you to see from that. Now, what is this IT control? Internal control is different. IT control is different. IT is information technology. Internal control, we will say usual internal management we should try to do. This is IT control in the internal management. So information technology. Now, basic points we already know. We will go one after another. Number one, the system should maintain a record of login and logout. When one fellow is logging in, when they are logging out, how they are trying to manage that, what time they have been, what and all they are trying to check, everything will be recorded. First, IT control. This you should connect with your IS audit tools also. Second, if the transaction is sought to be posted in a dormant or inoperative account, the processing should be halted and it should have a supervisory password. Let's take for an example. You have some regular accounts inside the bank. The bank officials only will deal with all that. Suddenly, when you know that 3-4 years you have not opened that account and it has been dormant or inoperative account. Suddenly, when you wanted to open it, do you think with a normal ID and password itself you will be able to open? No, it should not open. It should ask for a supervisory password. Otherwise, how will you know whether it is active account or dormant account? So you should know dormant or inoperative. There should always be a supervisory password. And everything, once the end of the day process is over, see the next point, once the end of the day process is over, the ledgers cannot be opened without a supervisory level password. Again, I told you, you will have to remember the supervisory. So write this and keep, so that these points and this and all, I am not going to send you in the link. So you can write this and keep. Number one, logs in and logs out. Number two, whenever you wanted to have a dormant or inoperative account, you should have what password? A supervisory password. Number three, when the day of the process is over, the ledgers should not get opened unless and until you have what password? Supervisory level password. Yes. Now next, see the next point again, where you need supervisory level password. Exceptional situation where the limit is over the limit, excess of the limit, or reactivating dormant account. This and all only when you have supervisory level. Already we told this point, correct? And if they try to keep the business hours from 9 o'clock to 6 o'clock, the access to the system in the bank should be available only between 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. That means what? Stipulated hours, specified days only. It is not like whenever you wanted to open, you can. So they should have a strong authenticated level of dealing things with that. Next, individual users can access only specified directories and files. The people who are in the bank or the people who are liaising with the bank should ensure that they should have a proper directory and file. Next, there should be a login time, logout time. We already told. The user timeout will always be predetermined and it will be automatically logged out when you are able to. Let's take for an example. For a small logical access control, we will say for any pin in the ATM, 3 times you can practice, or you can try. After the third time it will say only 1 valid attempt. If you have already done, you have done 2 invalid attempts. So be very careful about it. So don't you think you'll properly log in and log out at that time? Yes, like that only they will try to do in that IT controls in banks also. See the next point. Very important point. The system flashes a message if the balance in the lien account would fall below the lien amount after the processing. For every particular ledger, they will ensure there should be a threshold fixed. We call it as limit. If the threshold is coming down, automatically the system will flash a message. You will have to maintain decent amount of balance. It is coming within the, is coming below the limit prescribed. So ensure you should be careful about it. It will make it strong. So they will have a control over that IT control they will have. Last is whatever it is, it should all be within the drawing power. So these are the points. So please write it and keep. Logs in, logs out, very important. Supervisory password, important. Access should only be in specified hours, specified days. Only directories and files you can use, only your access files. Timeout will be prescribed. If there is any ledger accounts which is falling below the amount which is prescribed threshold, the system should flash a message and everything should be within the drawing power. Guys, all these are the questions that they have added in the November 2020 exams applicability. I am again repeating, it is not just the amendment of May 2020. If at all you know, when people come back to me asking for the material, I will tell them very clearly, I have a material for till November 19. I have amendment notes for May 2020, and I wanted to tell that some more questions have been added after May 2020 for November 2020. There are some questions which they have been very clearly mentioned So that you should know. Only if you know what was before, you know what is now, that is there. Correct? Like amendments in your law. What is before only you will know. When you do not know DRR was actually having 25%, you will not know. When you study 10%, you will have to know that there is a limit changed. Correct? In share capital and debentures, you will have to try to know that the debenture rules has been changed, that percentage has been changed. You will not know in what type of the NFRA, what type of rules they have changed, part-time, full-time, how they have changed. You do not know CSR Schedule 7. You will not know the three extra activities that they have added in CSR. What am I talking about? I am talking about the amendments that is happening in, that is there in November 2020 corporate and other laws. Correct? Like that you will try to know. Now that is the difference between you checking up what is for November 19, what is for May 20, what is for November 20 accordingly. We say for law we have amendments, but here the amendments are also there in EIS. They are, ICA is like keeping it intact and saying this is how the future is going to be. So slowly they will start changing. I will not be surprised even after some 2-3 attempts if they even bring blockchain technology and try to know about how it features and how the internet was 25 years before. Blockchain is going to be that level popular. So we may not know how it is. They may bring robotic process automation. They may try to, they already have brought data analytics. They might be bringing some extra concepts on that. So they can also bring new technologies. Already Web 3.0 has changed to Web 4.0. Internet of Things is already there in your EIS, and all these things, AI, ML, artificial intelligence, machine learning, all that they were already updated. So we should know that what we study as CA is not for your exams, but based on your current and recent technology. You should know that. That's very, very important. Okay. Next, we will go to IT risk in banking. What are the IT risks in banking you will have to have, so that you should accordingly try to remember. Very simple, basic points. Whenever you have a IT risk in banking, guys, previously I told internal control in banks. The next question is IT control in banks. The next I told IT risk in bank. Now I am telling risk and control. That's what we were talking about for the whole of the day. Correct? So I am bringing it in a easy format for you to understand what is your risk, what is your control. Now, IT risk in banking, you will have access controls. That's very important. I already told you it can be physical access control, logical access control, environmental control, all these things. Correct? The access controls is very important. Authorization process. I already told you authorization, user ID and password. Yes, authorization and authentication. So for both you will try to have. So authentication, authorization. Only authorized individual can do authentication. There is a process and procedure for that. So you should try to remember both. Change management. Whenever there is a change in the management, you should know how to have the risk, whether you are able to have a control over it or not. Diverse networks. There are various networks that they can change. We will usually say wires and wireless. Correct? Wires and wireless. We call it as bound media. Yesterday, I have also touched on this concept. What is wire? What is wireless? Bound media, unbound media, guided media, unguided media. So like that, you should know if the network is changing, there can be a problem called wire tapping. All these are logical access controls. Piggybacking. All these things they can try to have. Subversive threats. All this you will have in logical access control. Subversive threats, all these things you should know. So diverse networks, there is a chance that these are all the risks that can happen. So where will you study all this? I am writing here itself, logical access control. If you remember, we already told this. Controls based on resources. It will be there in your 3rd chapter. Controls based on resources. Controls based on resources. Yes. Next is incident handling. Whenever you have a problem, first time you will know how to handle the incident, and every time you should not again and again ensure that the same risk happening. There should be no repeated risk. We usually say this, correct? Making a mistake is not a problem. making the same mistake is a huge problem. Correct? So incident handling, first time when there is a problem comes, what you will do? You will try to do PDC. You will either do preventive or you will detect and correct. Now, when you prevent, detect, correct, what is that you will do? Next time, the same problem should not happen. Next time, the vulnerability itself should not come. Only when the vulnerability comes, there will be threat. Only when the threat comes, there will be risk. Only when the risk comes, it will be attack likelihood or exposure. Are we clear? So we are connecting with what? We are in now the 5th chapter, but we are connecting with the first chapter, if you remember. So we should know how to connect that. Next, maintaining the response time. You will have to be quick. When you wanted to connect with the internet, it will only be seconds. The click of the mouse, if it takes 1 minute, will you keep that mouse after that? Don't you think you will throw? Yes, so it should be in seconds and microseconds. The maintenance and the maintaining the response time should be quick. In the banking and all, this can be also a risk. So we should be careful whether it is hacked or not. The ownership of the data or process should only be the process owner. For every process, there will be owner, and only then they will be able to alter the entries if you wanted to or if you don't wanted to. So process owner. Last is user identity management. We will usually connect with ISCA, which is your continuous and intermittent simulation on audit hooks. You remember this? Whenever we say continuous and intermittent simulation, we told what? We told trap the exceptions. You remember this? And audit hooks, we always say find out the suspicious activities. They will use a word called flag the suspicious activities. So it will try to display that in the auditor's terminal, flag the suspicious activities. So we should be careful about it. And this is how you will remember. Triple A, and A. CD, change management diverse networks. IMO, user, incident, maintaining and ownership, and the user identity management. This is what they will try to do. Please write this and keep so that you can remember that and say IT control is different, IT risk is different, internal control is different, risk management strategy is different, risk related term is different. I have told all the confusing questions. Listen to this video again and again. You will understand what we have connected. Maybe for the first time, you may not be able to appreciate quickly, but you will be able to get it when you listen to it 2-3 times. Please write this and keep. I'll give you a minute. Don't forget to write the mnemonics and keep. The last one is the core banking system. We told what is there in core banking system. We will tell what is this core banking. Now only we have covered this IT controls and IT risk. So you will know what is that we are talking about in core banking system. Core banking system means what? We told centralized online real-time environment. What did we say? A common database in a central server will consolidate all the banking operations. So that's what they will do in core banking system. Second, each branch will function not as a branch but a forming part of the branch. What they will say, core banking system is always working based on the delivery channels. They will be more like a channel, but they will function as a bank on the whole, not as a branch. Though there will be different branches, they will ensure branches functions as delivery channels, providing service to the customer. It can be through information or it can be through any other product and service. It is otherwise called CBAS. What is that? Centralized Banking Application Software, CBAS. Please write this and keep. I will also mark this so that you will know it's quite important for your keyword to remember. Centralized Banking Application Software. CBS is otherwise called CBAS. Who knows? They can ask you this in the MCQ also. Next, it is supported by what? Advanced technology infrastructure. Advanced technology infrastructure. Undoubtedly, based on the technological changes, they will try to keep it and make it really strong. Customer is a customer of bank and not only the branch. Just now I told you, when you enter into the branch, it is not the branch, you have entered into the bank itself. What does that mean? That means that you would have opened account in any other place, but still if you go to any other branch, if you give your account number, they will help you in providing the required necessary information. So it can be any branch you can step in. You don't need to go directly to the branch where you opened account. So that means not just the branch, the customer is the customer of bank itself, not the branch. It is modular. That means step by step they will try to implement. They will do the implementation of stages in modular structure. Then they will integrate all the third-party applications. They will ask the third-party outsourcing will happen, and they will try to provide you the banking softwares. Through that banking software, they will be providing you the services. This is what they will try to say in core banking system. Examples are there. 5 examples you can also remember. Infosys Finacle, Nucleus Fin1, very important for the examination. Infosys Finacle, Nucleus Fin1, Oracle FlexCube, banks. See the banks spelling, it is not BANKS, capital B, small a, capital N, capital C, capital S. It is not like we do not know the case sensitive and we have written. This is how they will ask you the question. Generally, if they ask bank and they say in which it is not the example, you can mark banks, because if the spelling is BANKS or capital BANCS, that also is wrong. Small a should be there. Then only you will know that it is an example. Bank met, capital B is not the point. Small b and capital M. So we should be again careful based on that. Based on that, they will ask you examples. So the last 2 will be confusing. So you will have to remember it and keep. So banks and bankmet, these are the 5 examples that you have for your core banking system. They may ask you in the examination. Are we clear? Now this is what we have in core banking system. Now guys, what we have actually done, we made very simple on what are the risks, what are the controls of business process automation. What and all I will summarize for another 5 minutes. If you remember, we started up saying what is business, what is process, what is business process, what is business process automation. In business process automation, what is the risk, what is the control, how you will try to know what type of risk and all will be there. For that, we try to see the risk related terms. What are all the strategies you will have? 5 T's we told. Tolerate or accept the risk, terminate or eliminate the risk. Like that, we told 5 T's. If you remember, if you see the video, you will understand what we have done. We did not stop there. We told on the whole of your business process automation, you will have configuration, master and transaction. For that, we told P2P, OTC, HR, inventory, all these things will be connected. Now, risk of business process automation is different from types of business risk. That too will be confusing question. We told that also. Second, we told internal control as per COSO, enterprise risk management. We connected that and said, concept is same, only words will be changed. We should be careful about that. Then we went to core banking system. Before even we step into the risk and control of core banking system, we told very clearly what is IT control, what is internal control, what is IT risk. Then only we went to core banking system. Now, in the core banking system, you also have some 8 or 9 risk and controls. If you remember, P2P, OTC and all I told for first chapter. Like that, for core banking system also you have some 7 or 8. If you read the common points like CASA, current account, savings account, treasury process, loans and advance process, all these are there. If you know the basics right, and if you can go back, you will understand what is the problem, what is the solution, what is the risk, what is the control, how you can try to manage it, you can glance it and keep. And compliance procedures are also there. Prevention of Money Laundering Act 2002, they have made some amendments. They have brought it from CA final law paper to EIS paper. So what are the reporting entities obligations, what are the layers, or how you will try to see what is money laundering, how you can prevent it, what is the penalty, all that 43A, all these sections and all, they have brought it for Information Technology Act and Prevention of Money Laundering Act. Now, the 8 hour session, what we have done till now, is for you to understand the base for your EIS and ESM. I have not completed everything fully, but I wanted to do something. That something is to ensure that I wanted to bring that positivity outlook for you in your EIS ESM. Somebody should be giving you that spark, and once that spark is done from our class through our Chengalpattu Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, we are very, very happy, because the positive outlook is going to be more important. Even before you enter into the exam hall, we need to bother only that are we confident and positive? Are we perseverant in making all the questions right? Are we able to write? Are we understanding the confusing questions? Don't forget to write a list called confusing questions list and say, this is how it is going to be confusing. What is confusing for me may not be confusing for you. So don't you think you should write a separate list and say, this is what is confusing for me? Yes, please do that and continue doing. Ensure that have a connection with the chapter. Whenever I wanted to connect ITSM, I brought the law inside the picture. Whenever I wanted to connect, I brought SM into the picture. Whenever I had a necessity, I brought auditing into the picture. I am not bringing every subject unnecessarily. There is a purpose. There is a necessity for our professional chartered accountants to know that whenever you wanted to concept, don't go by the subject, don't go by the chapter. Stop speaking about the chapter names unless and until it is required. Only for the exams perspective, somebody tells you a particular concept, if you do not know where it is coming from, then chapter name and number is going to be fine. Other than that, don't bother for EASM which chapter it is coming from. It is on the whole, when you start from business and end up in strategic control or entrepreneur or intrapreneur, everything is same chapter only. But we may not know how to differentiate. So ICA was generous enough to give you, this is chapter number 1. Read this for chapter number 2. Read this for chapter number 3. Correct? Like that it has to be. So please take it from me. Start studying for your life and not for your exams alone. When you cover your macro environment, automatically your micro environment also will get covered. Most importantly, start speaking positively. Whenever somebody says EASM is tough, just smile it and come, because you know how to make that easy after attending our 8 hours class. So the point is very simple. If at all you speak positive only, your body will be energized with that. If you speak again and again, EASM is like that, I am not able to remember, I do not know how to do that. I 5 times if I study also, I am not able to. Previously, I did not remember. I do not know if I will be able to remember now. I am already aged. I could not remember. All this are just the mind voices that you have in your subconscious mind. We will usually say in strategic management, unfreezing, changing the old to new situation, refreezing. If you remember the strategic management concept called strategic change, it is developed by a person called Kurt Lewin. So he would have told, first you should be ready to change. For example, I am changing you now for the last 8 hours for EASM. You should be ready to change, and only then I can change you. So unfreezing should happen. You should start changing your old to new situation, saying, yes, after this 8 hours, I am quite decently managing myself. I will be able to speak positive. Let's keep November 2020 as our last attempt. Don't you think? Unfreezing, you will change your old into new situation. Yes. Then what I am trying to do now is refreezing, saying that EASM is very simple. The only thing is you should have an interest over it. Think you are already knowing something about technology, or you are interested, and not maybe for exams alone you're studying. If you read for 40 marks, you will have that level only. If you wanted to bring in your effort and you ensure that we are doing something for our knowledge purpose, if at all somebody asks what is this at the later stage, you will not say, sorry sir, I completed inter, it was my inter portion, that question I left in choice because I did not have time at that time. So don't ask me that question. Do you think as a professional you will speak that? No. So as a chartered accountant, you should know that how you should cover up all the subjects, and you cannot memorize everything. but you cannot be keeping only the concept. You will not be able to do anything about it if you just keep the concept for the exam. Concept also is important. Memory is also important. Albert Einstein's words, again, which I usually like: the true sign of intelligence is not just knowledge, but imagination. So please try to take that. It is not just the knowledge is power, imagination, how you wanted to. In another 3-4 months, when the 2021 comes, that you should know that you have already done the examination and you are waiting for the result, and it is going to be a fantastic year. So start speaking positive, put in your effort. Fortune favors the brave. If you wanted to get a lottery prize, get a lottery ticket, and only then you can get lottery prize. So that means what? Put in your hard work, put in your smart work. There is no shortcut for it. Once you do all that, you write the examinations with your full consciousness. I bet you will be able to write it and keep that you will pass the examination this time. Keep visualizing, keep what you wanted to do after 3 months. Now if you think, what you think now will happen after 3-4 months. This is what we call it as visualization. So keep visualizing, be positive, ensure that you are surrounded by the positive people at least till the exams, and ensure that you are comfortable. Whenever we wanted to meet again, it should be only for the CA final classes. That's what I usually say for people who are in inter. I am also telling this to you for the people who are watching this video. I hope you would have enjoyed all the 8 hours of session. Keep it for the concept and ensure you are doing a happy learning. Correct? Okay, good. So I'm really happy. On the outset, I wanted to thank the SICASA members and the whole institute for bringing this initiative. I've seen all the big faculty members, eminent members, Kasturi Rangan sir, Hari sir, many people are like taking up the classes, and I have just seen them. I have also seen auditing class that is happened with the SA, I think 500 series. So it is like really good. So good that I have also been a part, and it's been like fantastic that what they are trying to do. So it is for the benefit of the students that ICA works, and this institute again, Chengalpattu Institute, also works it to the next level. We have also seen they have got awards and all the accreditations for whatever the work they wanted to do for the students fraternity, CA students fraternity. Wholeheartedly, I wanted to thank from my behalf. And if there is anything for the notes or the materials, we will try to do it either tonight or maybe tomorrow morning, so that you can get benefited from those notes also. Okay, thank you and have a nice day, dears. Over to SICASA people.
Thank you so much, sir. As sir said, this our branch, the SICASA of Chengalpattu branch, our main motive is students' welfare. We wish all the students all the very best, and I'm sure this 8-hour session would be of highly use to you. And one more thing, students, all these 8 hours, all these videos are always available on YouTube. You can watch it anytime, and you can share with your friends as much as possible. I deem it my privilege to thank CS Bharth sir for taking time out of his schedules and planning the 8-hour long revision program for EIS with us. Thank you so much, sir. I'm sure sir's lectures would give you conceptual clarity and also exam approach for the upcoming exam. And also sir has been motivating us. We feel that EIS is a paper which is not of our cup of tea or cup of coffee. We are ready to face accounts, costing, or any quantitative paper, but when it comes to theory papers, we find these dry. I'm sure if you had followed the 8-hour long session, you wouldn't be feeling in that way anymore. So share this with all your friends. You can keep watching anytime. And as sir said, the notes will be shared through Google Drive link, which will be in the description box of this video. It will be shared by tonight or tomorrow morning. You can open it anytime, and you can even download that. So all the very best for all dear students. Let's rock this November 20 exams. We are having many more sessions with many more faculties. We are planning them out. Those will be notified. If you had subscribed to this channel, you would be getting notifications. Otherwise, also we are sharing that in social media platforms like WhatsApp, Instagram, and Facebook. You can follow us on that platform too. So keep following us, keep supporting us also. All the very best. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Thank you to all the students who have been a
Thank
part
you.
of this section.
Thank you.